welcome back to the only person who's ever thought to film in their car. It's a new format I've come up with last week and I thought it was really good, so I thought I'd carry it on this time. I'm seeing it starting to pick up, a couple of other people starting to film in their car, so yeah, bit of a revolutionary, me. In England, we rarely get improvised comedy. It's a very Americanized style of comedy. A lot of the British understanding of improvised comedy comes from American TV shows where they've referenced it. BoJack Horseman, for example, compares improvised comedy to a cult.
No, improv is not a cult.
We've got it as a lot of like, can't break character, can't do this, can't do that. It's all about saying yes and going with the flow. It's all a bit of that. And me and Maria the other day, we watched the new Netflix special, Middleditch We watched the Netflix special, Middleditch
Schwartz.
Completely improvised comedy special. And this was my opinion. So as I've said, in England, we don't get a lot of improvised comedy. I think you could probably get some in like uni comedy circles, possibly at like Edinburgh Fringe or a couple of other like comedy festivals where you can get niche styles. But it's definitely not a big thing over here, and I've certainly never seen it on telly because it does kind of break the whole improvised if it's being recorded, because it can just continue to go forever. But this new Netflix special, Middleditch
Schwartz,
a completely improvised comedy show, it was actually really impressive. It was funny, witty, off the cuff. It's a whole new element when it's off the cuff, so I thought I'd break it down into a couple of categories, go through it, give you my opinions, and yeah, this is my first take on it. Number one, the guys, the boys, Thomas Middleditch and Ben
Schwartz.
Middleditch and Schwartz. They're hilarious. They are truly unique. If you knew me, you definitely know who my favourite would be, because the wacky, zany Thomas Middleditch. He is so zany and crazy. Every decision he makes in the improvised comedy is always ludicrous. He is just more of that whimsical character. But on the other hand, Ben Schwartz, I find his more serious nature kind of holds it together. And even though his comedy isn't particularly serious, and I'll get onto that later and how improvised comedy is just silly comedy in some sense, Ben manages to just hold this demeanour of, I'm keeping this running, I'm keeping this going, I can let you go a bit crazy every now and then and I'll just play off you. That's not to say he doesn't have his crazy moments, because trust me, they do. And then through each special, each episode, there's 3 episodes in total, it definitely goes between the two of which one I found more entertaining. It tends to always be Thomas Middleditch, but there's glimmers of when Ben really brings it home, and he is the reason why that bit worked, or why that scene worked, or that character was particularly funny. Together, they are the perfect duo, and I would not like to see an improvised show with more people in, I don't think. I think 2 seems to have hit this perfect balance where I can still be entertained and I'm not too lost with different people trying to show off their abilities of doing different characters or wanting a different scenario. They seem to work perfectly in harmony, and they're both interested in not themselves but telling a comedy story. I hope that made sense. Number 2, the audience. Comedy specials usually start with the comedian coming out, riffing at the audience for a bit, giving them a bit of 1-2, letting them have it. An improvised comedy show, the show is actually solely dependent on the audience. That is because the two of them come out, Ben and Thomas introduce themselves, and then they go straight to the audience to get their suggestions for the show. And now, as someone that has never seen improvised comedy before, this is where I struggle, because I don't understand what information they're looking for, what information they're trying to gauge from the audience. And it differs throughout each special. The audience member seems to give them less, sometimes more, sometimes information, and all I can say is that they manage to use everything that they tell them. Even when you think this audience member is being so counterproductive, they have just told no information, it's been so boring to listen to, their life doesn't seem interesting, or it's the fact that their suggestion seems too, pushed, it seems like you're trying too hard. It doesn't matter, essentially, what they give them, because they managed to work with it. But I couldn't gauge from 3 specials what they were looking for from the audience. And what was weird is, even though it was an American audience, it doesn't ever seem like the audience knew what they were looking for. Also, it helps having an audience laughter there, because, as I said, I'll get onto it, it's quite silly. You're always laughing. There's not a moment when you aren't laughing. You could happily laugh at every single moment in their specials. In their show, it would just be constant laughter. But you can laugh too much where you stop, and the audience kind of helps that, because you can hear little giggles. It's not hysterical laughter all the time. It's people finding little bits funnier than other bits. There's a constant noise of the audience in the best way. It's really hard to describe, because audience laugh tracks have gotten such negative feedback. Sometimes an audience member with an hysterical laugh can ruin a comedy special, or sometimes a comedy special isn't good and you can just hear this one person in the background laughing so hard to make everyone else laugh. But in this instance, it was really refreshing to have the support needed, especially when I'm watching it for the first time, that sort of format, to just coax you through it and know that it's okay to laugh heavily at some parts, it's okay to just enjoy others. You don't have to laugh, you can just watch and have fun watching it. Number 3, the 4th wall. It's almost non-existent at times, particularly important in number 3. In the last special, A Dream Job. In the last special, A Dream Job, they come out of character for what seems like at least a 5-minute section in total. And it is probably my favourite section, and I don't think anyone else could do it. I don't think if I went to an amateur improv that I would want them to come out of character, because for the majority of the show they're always in character. They're doing everything possible to stay in character. Even when they're laughing about it and they break the 4th wall a little bit, it's them as the character breaking the 4th wall. But in the last one, they just completely go. You're clear it's improvised, they're talking about real life, and it is funny, and they are professional enough to bring it back in and keep going with the story. The only comparison I can do where they break the 4th wall so dramatically is, say, Deadpool, where it's constantly talking to the camera. However, with an improvised comedy, nothing is real, and it's clear, because in A Dream Job, they're in a cubicle in JFK Airport with 3 New Yorkers and the main character, and then suddenly the second main character comes in. It's ludicrous, and it's silly, but it's amazing. It's really funny. And even though at one point they're just completely out of character and breaking the 4th wall, you're still engaged. It's the best part. You're all aware of how ludicrous it is. It's really excellently done to break the 4th wall and bring it back in, because it's a hard skill to do. And I don't think actors or actresses get enough credit for when they can break the 4th wall effectively and bring the audience and bring the people watching back in. 4th, the humour. Improvised comedy is silly. It is ultimately silly. If you're going to categorise it into one type of comedy, that is what you'd put it in. That doesn't mean that there isn't dark humour, intellectual humour, classical humour, any other humour you want. They are all there. Although improvised comedy is based on silliness. You've made a decision and the other person has to commit to it. There's a point where, I can't remember which one makes the other act like a gazelle. And then throughout the entire show, the other one is desperately trying to make them act like a gazelle. And then the whole thing ends up with one of them being pretending to be fucked by a gazelle. It's hysterical. It's silly and dark. It's perfect. It is so funny, and I just really enjoyed it. So that has been my little breakdown of the UK person's first opinion of improvised comedy. It's the first time it's really broken into the market out here. We've traditionally had a lot of sketch comedy, but never improvised. And this has been really good. I think if they get another Netflix special, I beg that they do, I would definitely watch it. I could watch 100 of them. If they go and tour in the UK, I'm going to try and get there. That is where I'm at with that. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope that there's a market over here at some point for it to come over here. I'm gonna get out of this car because I am sweating fucking buckets. I need a shower. It is so hot in here, it is a joke. If you're new, like, subscribe. I'll be back on Wednesday. I think I've got one more week of being in the car, and then I think I'm gonna try and find a new location to film in. If you're looking for something to watch, I cannot recommend this more. It is perfect. The only thing I would say is just commit to it. Enjoy laughing to something that is ridiculously silly. Bye.